know, when I was trying to think of the topic for this week's video, I thought, oh, let's do goals. Let's do the obstacles that can get in the way of us achieving goals. And the more I thought about it, the more I started thinking, well, there's all these classic ways of approaching those goals, approaching those obstacles. You know, like breaking things down, planning. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, but what is it that keeps us from still achieving the goal? What is it that stops us? Because we can think and think and think, and we can come up with as many steps as we want, but sometimes we just don't get there. And I think that what we need to keep doing is not so much come up with the steps. The steps are important, don't get me wrong, but sometimes we need to figure out, are we asking the right question? Are we asking the right question of ourselves? If I take, for instance, the example of me wanting to set up this YouTube channel. I have literally wanted to set this channel up for years. And I didn't get around to it. Now, I planned it. I bought the equipment. That was the fun bit. Yep, buying the equipment's fun. But I still wasn't getting there. I was sometimes even recording. I was coming up with topics. I was all sorts of things. But I still wasn't getting there. And I think that's similar to what happens with a lot of us when we're trying to achieve goals. There are so many things that can stop us from getting there, and yet even though we use all the normal techniques, we still don't figure out what it is that's stopping us from achieving it, stopping us from getting over that final hurdle, if you like. With myself, the more that I asked questions, and I really couldn't understand it, but what it came down to was that I was scared of judgment. I was scared, particularly in my old job, I was scared of people going, well, who the hell does he think he is? That's Matt from IT. Who does he think he is going onto YouTube for a start? YouTube's for posh people or whatever. You know, it's not posh people, sorry, but it's not for the likes of us. And he's IT, so what's he doing talking about well-being? And yet it's a topic, I'm sure you might have figured out, I'm fascinated with. That was one of the biggies that was holding me back. And funnily enough, and sadly in a way, it came down to me leaving IT and suddenly having the ability to put all that behind me. That made me finally start doing these videos and actually publishing them. And I think that is where the questions of ourselves, the looking into what is it, what's the deeper reason. It's not just the questions of how are we able to do something, but what's actually holding us back. What is the reason that we might not do it? And sometimes we might not want to face that straight out, but it is something we have to consider. A couple of great questions that you can use to start the whole process is things like why and what. Why am I not able to do this? What am I feeling when I start to do it? And that's a great way of looking at it, asking yourself what you're feeling. And if you can tune into yourself, if you can do a bit of reflection, or maybe even a bit of mindfulness, maybe even a body scan, and start to feel and realize what you're feeling within your body. Is this a bit of stress? Is this worry? You know, and realizing what it is, being able to give it a name means that we can tackle it so much better. And when we do that, we can move forward. We can come up with, instead of just the plans for, right, okay, on such and such a day I do this, then I do that, and I've got to take care of this, I've got to take care of that. We can also make plans for making sure that, for instance, if it's something that causes you anxiety, how do you deal with the anxiety? What is your plan in getting over the stress? What is your plan in getting over the fear of people judging you? Understanding that gives us a much better chance of actually moving on and achieving those goals. So what's the way forward? Well, It's always good to actually understand what your goal is. What are you actually trying to do? And that's page 1. But really knowing where you're wanting to go with it, drawing out some kind of roadmap, and from the roadmap you can get your plan, and then building in the same plan for yourself as well as the goal is a great way of moving forward with it. So what happens if, when you ask yourself these questions, the answers that you get start to disturb you, start to trouble you? Well, don't go too far into it. Take it a bit at a time, like every other aspect of getting a goal together, or either your milestones or whatever. Take it step by step. I recommend to people that when they're doing anything where there's a question of what they feel, anything to do with emotions, you never know where it's going to lead. So always have, if you like, a happy place, always have something that you can return to, so that if you're actually doing some kind of reflection and it starts to get a bit too emotionally painful, then to be able to back off from that and bring something else up, bring something that does give you a bit more comfort, a bit more joy, a bit of happiness, to use that, and then going back and forwards each time, taking another little bit till you get to the core of it. Obviously, if it gets too much, seek professional help without a doubt. But by having that happy place, which is a bit of a cliche, I know, but by having that thought, place, idea that you can return to, it means that you stay in control of how far you want to go into asking those questions, because some of the things that might be holding you back could be pretty deep. I know, and I'm not going to go into details, I know with myself that they are pretty deep. They go way back, some of it into childhood and what have you. But by being able to do things a bit at a time, by being able to go, okay, I'm allowing myself to think this, and by staying aware of how you feel, you are able to then go as far as you want to or need to go, and then be able to back out and go, okay, I've dealt with that bit just now, I'm going back to do this. It's almost like doing an easier job. If something's too difficult, do a bit of it, then do something easier, go back to the difficult one and keep doing it that way. But it's the same with thought or reflection. You're taking it so far, as far as you want to take it, as far as you're comfortable to take it. And then if it gets too much, you go to that safer place, that happier place, those happier thoughts. There's a technique in neuro-linguistic programming called anchoring, which is, and it's worth looking up. I won't go into all the details here, but it's worth looking it up. It's where you anchor to a better thought, a better time, something that gives you happiness, something that is stress-free, relaxes you. And you can do that by doing a certain movement or whatever that will help you trigger going back into that safer place, that more stress-free place. So anchoring is definitely something that's worth looking into, and that's from NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. If you look that up, you'll get more details there. So in finishing off, sometimes it's not the step-by-step things that get in the way of goals. Sometimes there's something a bit deeper. Sometimes the goal itself can end up being the biggest obstacle. And by asking ourselves questions like why, how, what, and doing that in whether it be a journal, whether it be talking to yourself, or any of those techniques, by getting those answers and starting to probe a little bit more, we can actually start to plan for how we ourselves, our emotions, our psyche, whatever, that we can plan those steps for ourselves and taking those forwards. Remember, if things get a wee bit too much, we can back out of it. We can find a safer place, safer thoughts, happier thoughts, and that can help protect us if things get a wee bit too much, because when we ask some of those questions, they might get a bit too much. They might be memories that might bring up memories that you don't want to deal with. If it does and it gets too much, and that safe place, those safe memories don't help, then getting professional help, like therapists, counsellors, coaches, or anything like that, is probably advisable. But there's a lot that we can do to help ourselves, you know, and it's not always a case of when we start thinking these things that they could get too deep, you know, taking it bit by bit. It's like any sort of exercise, if you like. We take it bit by bit, we get stronger as we go along. Now, just before we finish off, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's subscribed to the channel, especially over the last week or two. You sometimes see people on YouTube saying thank you when they get to 1,000 or 10,000 or something like that. I'm saying thank you for 100. Like I said earlier on in this video, I had a lot of self-doubt about putting this channel together. It took me a long time to get here. And to get 100 or now over 100 people subscribing to some bearded Glaswegian waffling on about well-being, thank you. It really is appreciated, more than you might realise. It does mean a lot. So again, thank you very much for that. Look, if there's anything that you want, any questions you have or anything like that, please feel free to get in touch with me or put them in the comments or something like that. Remember that the comments are a public forum, so just only put into it what you actually want to share. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.